welcome to another episode of New Orleans Basketball, a New Orleans Network podcast. As always, I'm your host, Raphael Rattler, joined today by my fellow men and brother, Garrick Raphael. What's popping with you, bro?
What up, bro? Things all good in the city, man. I'm enjoying. We back in the swing of like college football, NFL football, a lot of stuff, man. Shout out to Coach Prime, man. Coach Prime took them boys to Warren Bowl to Colorado, man. Colorado State coach was talking all over his mouth, and Prime. It took double overtime, but he did it, and man, that was a thrilling game. My Cajuns got a dub. Shout out to UL. Saints about to play in a couple of minutes. I mean, it's all good. Also, shout out to my Aces, man. Made it to the semifinals. we going back to back, man. My dog Asia Wilson out there hooping, Chelsea Gray out there hooping. So, man, I can't wait to see if we get a finals between New York and Las Vegas, bro. I'm not gonna lie to you. Might catch me out in Vegas again. Mm-hmm. I might have to see what's going on with Sabrina versus Asia. But nah, man, it's all good. Wish we had some. I just told you we got to stop meeting like this. And stuff is. How's everything on your end, bro?
Everything is blessed. My Arkansas Razorbacks did not perform.
I wasn't gonna bring it up.
It is what it is. You lose, you lose. You know, you take that L. But yeah, man, everything is blessed. We're in the swing of things. The Pels' first preseason game is in 3 weeks.
Yeah,
I feel like we're getting closer. But every time we get closer, it feels like there's less players available. But before we get into any of all of that, make sure you guys follow us on Twitter, follow us on X, whatever you want to call it. Follow us on IG. Follow us on TikTok at NO Basketball No E. Make sure you guys like the episode below. And if you have not already, make sure you subscribe to New Orleans Basketball, New Orleans Network. They're out there in Carolina today, ready for Monday Night Football. So, yeah, man, there's been a couple changes with the Pelicans since the last time we talked. Will Barton, shout out to him, working out for the Pelicans, veteran, sharpshooter. Been in the league and around the league for a long time. The Pelicans have an open roster spot. I don't know if he's going to make the roster or not, but what do you think about the Pelicans bringing in a veteran to kind of help training camp as, again, you're continuously losing bodies?
Yeah. You always think you got, the deepest team, and then it's like, wait, well, you got to subtract that, and then there's whatever. But I think Will Barton is a decent body to have in, right? He's a veteran. He's been around the league. He's been asked to be a bucket his entire career. That's what he is good for. He's not the best defender, but he gets buckets, right? He gets buckets. And I think that, if there is going to be an opportunity, that you have to have somebody come in, whether it be that extra roster spot, whether it be because of injuries, to bring in a guy who's been around, who's known to score buckets, and has some ties into, with some of the people in New Orleans, some people in New Orleans. I think that's a pretty good a guy to bring in. And like you say, we don't know if he's going to make the roster or not, but just to have a veteran presence around the guys and a guy that in a pinch, if he does make the roster, in a pinch could get you 10, 15 points in a short span with a short playing time. Will Barton has been known to be a bucket. So I'm not against it. We'll see, what his role is and if he actually makes the team. But, a veteran presence is never a bad thing to have on a young team.
Right. So if you're not opposed to that, how do you feel about the new player performance policy? Now, the Pelicans don't have this problem because it's not like they are sitting anybody down for rest. They just need them available. But what do you think in terms of what this means for the NBA and what this means for your typical fan that is trying to catch a game on a Tuesday night because the tickets are a little bit cheaper? How do you feel about it?
Well, I like the steps that the NBA is trying to take to curb, resting players, load management and things, right? They already put that limit on how many games you have to play in order to make some of those, some of those awards get on some of those all NBA teams. And, that has a financial impact on players, right? If you don't make a certain level, don't make a certain all NBA team, then you lose out on monies, right? So you financially incentivize these guys to get on the floor. And now, that they passed this, first of all, it wasn't a cooperative, obviously the Players Association worked in on it, worked with the governors on it, but it wasn't like, they both came to this, right? This is just the NBA kind of announcing that this is the way it's going to be, kind of a unilateral move. And so, it's going to be interesting, right? There's going to be guys who are going to get, going to say, hey, well, I am injured. How you going to tell me I'm not? The NBA has, they're going to have their own doctors come in and investigate missing and things like that. And also, like, I'm interested to see, like, what happens if, players say, I don't really care that it's going to cost you 100K for me sitting down. I'm not playing. And how does that go over? So it's got a lot of things, it's going to be an invested, it's going to be something that you have to watch the entire season and see how people, game the system. There's always ways to game the system. But like you said, the criteria for superstar players, the Pelicans have one, Zion, for right now. It's crazy that, like, Mike Conley is on the list of players, but, like, not Brandon Ingram. And it's crazy how this all-star, all NBA stuff goes and what they consider to be superstar players. But Zion is on the list. And so the Pels are going to have, if they do want to do rest or load management, which I cannot see them doing for a guy like Zion, unless he, not, I don't even want to say it. But, I would assume he wants to play as much as possible, and the Pelicans will want him to play as much as possible. But they're going to have to be careful with ways if they do ways that. But I like it. The more superstars on the team, more superstars on the floor, the better the game is, the better the product is. And I think the better that the money that they're trying to get this new TV deal going, and you want to have your best players, your best product on the floor when it happens. And so I think this is a little bit of incentivization on the NBA side to do that as well. But I like the steps nonetheless.
Sure. So let's go from a superstar player to a superstar in his role. Sham Charania reports that Jose Alvarado injured his ankle 2 days ago during a workout. The severity is unknown, although Jose was on Instagram earlier today, and it looked like he was on one of those scooters that you typically need when you're not putting weight on your foot. Okay. Another blow to the Pelicans before the season even starts. Who knows how long he's out? Hopefully it's sooner rather than later. Jose was an integral part of the Pelicans rotation and second unit last year, and they really missed him. Like, Larry Nance was in the Spaces hosted by Chris Connor and the Boot Crew folks, and talking about, hey, we miss Zion, we miss BI, but we missed Jose too, and Herb missed a lot of time, and Dyson missed a lot of time, and things like that. And for a player who was really coming to his own, developing a game offensively, again, another setback in its way. So what we wanted to do today, hopefully we're not meeting again for a similar topic and things like that, and just kind of discuss the questions heading into media day, the questions heading into the training camp for the Pelicans. So starting with this one, if Jose is out for, again, we don't know the severity, we don't know if it's a long-term injury, short-term injury, if he's out for any amount of time leading into the regular season, first question is, who do you think seizes those minutes now that Trey's minutes are gone and Jose conceivably had a spot lined up for him? Now it's like, okay, you got Kyrie, you got Dyson, you got Sebron. Where's your head kind of lay on it? What do you think the Pelicans do? Or how do you think it works itself out during training camp?
Wouldn't it be a sort of poetic justice that Jose gets hurt and Kyra Lewis steps back on the floor and shows the fan base and the NBA why the Pelicans took him so high, and and what he has and the talent that he has? Listen, I'm hoping that it's Kyra Lewis. Listen, you never want to see Jose, anybody get hurt, especially a guy like Jose, who is the heart and soul of the team, on by everybody's account in the organization. And hopefully, again, it's an ankle sprain, so it's not. Hopefully, it's nothing super severe, but we've seen people, have to deal with ankle sprains for a while, right? Until they can get back to where they want to go, and then it becomes a recurring injury if you don't take it, as you need to. But I'm hoping that it's Kyra Lewis gets an opportunity to kind of get back on the floor, and show, why the Pelicans were so interested in him and why they drafted him so high. And listen, this is how Jose got his opportunity, right? Kyra going down and him stepping into the role and kind of grabbing it by the horns and not relinquishing that backup point guard spot. So hopefully, Kyra can step in and do some of those things. I think that Dyson was already going to play with Trey hurt. So I think that you're gonna see a little bit more relying on him as well. But I think that Kyra is a guy that obviously Willie Green has at least some trust in by throwing him out there against OKC. And giving him a shot to play, and he's played him sporadically. So I think with a guy like Jose being out, that you're looking at for that backup point guard, kind of space to space the floor and pick up the transition and pick up the speed of the team. Jose does a fantastic job at it, but I think Kyra is a guy that can step in and handle some of those things as well.
So where my head's at on it is, I think it's going to depend from the game. If Jose is to miss any time, what Jose brings to a team is not necessarily stats. It's not necessarily points. Like some games he went off shooting, 8 threes, like some games like that. But mostly it's the energy. It's what he brings from a holistic standpoint of how it elevates the team. Like I talk about it all the time. Outside of Zion, nobody lights up the Smoothie King Center like Jose. Like Jose has his own chant in the Smoothie King Center, and his name is known like nationally, and he's a guy who comes off the bench. And so I just don't know if he misses any time, if there's one person that can replace that. I think it's going to be one of those things where, what is the game call for? And you and I have talked about this with Willie Green. When you have a deep roster, some games, like if he misses any time, Dyson may be the answer. Some games it might be Kyra. If you got CJ running the point with the second unit, or Zion running the point with the second unit, who's going to space the floor the best? What are the matchup? Things like that. I think there's a lot of answers. Again, like you lose Trey for some time, you lose Jose hopefully for a short amount of time, but you've got guys on the roster that can contribute. It just may look different. What you get from them and how you use them might look a little bit different. All right, let's go to the next question. Brandon Ingram had a disappointing FIBA. Like, there's no other way to put it. Like, again, if you're a Pelicans fan, some of the things that Brandon Ingram did, you're encouraged by, because it's the little things with him, because you've got to learn how to be an off-ball player. You've got to learn how to contribute in different ways if Zion is on the court, and how do you get the most of you guys together? But my question to you and heading into media day is like, how is he going to respond, right? And so you obviously say, well, he's going to get the ball and he's going to try to score, but can he take away some of the things that he was working on in FIBA in terms of the rebounding, in terms of the defensive intensity, and bring that with him? Or is it like, oh no, let me shut everyone the hell up, I can still score 25 points a game? Where does your mind kind of land on there?
Yeah, I think that, BI's experience at FIBA was one that, it was more about rounding the outer skirts of his game, because I think you could watch every Brandon Ingram FIBA game and come out with the realization that guy can probably still score in the NBA if he's used in a different position. I mean, the guy averaged 25 points a game last season, and we've never known him to not be a scorer. But I think it's time, we saw some of the things that he was doing, engaging on the defensive end, even when he's not getting shots. I think that is one of the things that was most impressive for him. Obviously, his stats were not what it was supposed to be, and he didn't shoot well and things like that. But for all of those things to be true, and for him to still show some chops on the defensive end, to show some willingness to get into the tussle and get the rebounds, and then some other times where he was helping on defense and making plays and being a playmaker. Even with his shot not falling, right, it's very easy to sulk into yourself. And we heard him vocally say that he was frustrated with his role, but it never showed in the other aspects of his game. So I want to see, can he bring that in? And I do want to see a little bit of, all right, let me remind y'all who I am, right? Not to the detriment of the team. But I do want, Brandon Ingram. We've always talked about, what is some of the things that separate like Brandon Ingram from like Jason Tatum and guys like that, right? And I think we've all, in one way or another have heard the statement that like Brandon Ingram doesn't like get into like that dog mentality, right? Into that, like, give me the ball, get out the way. We've seen him kind of struggle with with Zion and CJ on the floor. I want to see that, right? Like, good. You finally ran into some adversity as far as like your game being questioned, right? It's always been Brandon Ingram is improving. He's done this, he's done that. Well, now you've run into some adversity, right, on the national stage, and I do want to see him come into this season like on a mission to prove it, because he has to do some of those things, right? He's now in that contract extension year, right? If you want to be get that max contract, make an all NBA team, right? Pull a Jaylen Brown where you're running next to an all NBA first team or second teamer, and you're right there with him. And so I would like to see some of that coming into this season. But I think what I want to see is, to your point, can you bring some of those other things, those tertiary things over, and apply them when you're no longer the fifth or sixth option in the Steve Kerr offense with all of those other people? When you come home and you are the second option, but that first option is going to get the ball a lot, what can you do in that role?
Sure. What's a question you have leading into media day and training camp?
I think one of the ones is what's going to happen at the center position, right? What's going to happen, with JV, right? JV has shown that he can do some things with Lithuania, right? Again, we see him being able to contribute and lead a team into some deep rounds of the FIBA tournament. But like we saw last year, Willie Green does not play JV in normal FIBA Lithuania minutes. And so if you're going to Larry Nance, or is it going to be EJ Liddell, right? Is Liam Robbins a guy that's going to be able to crack that rotation because he has some interesting traits that, a lot of players on the Pelicans don't have. And so, I'm interested to see how that center by committee works this season. Is it going to be more JV being featured this year? Or is it going to be playing Larry Nance more of the minutes? And how is EJ Liddell fit into that? And does Zion see some center minutes? So the center position is going to be a question for me. Like, what is going to be the question? What is going to be the answer at center? What are your thoughts on that one?
It's the weakest position on the team. Even if center by committee, like last year you had JV and you had Billy, and we called Billy JV light because he had a very similar disposition and how he played basketball to JV. And then you had Larry. Well, you went and got Cody Zeller, who's kind of like a vet, tough, scrappy center, but not really a rim protector and not really a floor spacer. So you're still left with JV and Larry Nance, right? And EJ may play some of that, to your point, Zion some of that, but it's the weakest position on the team. And so are you going to find a appropriate way to use JV because he has so much talent? Or are you just going to be looking all season to see how you can uplift? And again, if Zion and Brandon Ingram on the court, it may not matter, right? But it's not necessarily what you do in the regular season. It's about getting to the postseason healthy, and then what matchups do you have to throw at the other matchups? Because guess what? I'm sorry, Anthony Davis is not going anywhere.
No, he's not.
Nikola Jokic is not going anywhere. So if you want to get out the West, you're going to have some type of center play. You're going to have someone that can battle with them, at least slow them down. And right now, I don't know if that person's on the roster. So you mentioned Zion and him potentially playing the 5. A question I have going in the media day is, what's different about Zion? Like, he said this to end his second sophomore season. The definition of insanity is doing the same things over and over and over and expecting different results. You've seen him have a different approach this summer in terms of not just working out. Like, he always worked out. Everyone always talks about his work ethic and not necessarily what happens after the injury, but he's always never been one you had to question if he's working. But more so, like, is your play style a little bit different to try to avoid some of those injuries? Are you shooting more jumpers to, again, try to avoid some of those injuries? Is your mentality different, right? Like, you saw glimpses, and again, before he got hurt, he was building momentum into becoming a plus defender, not just not a liability, but a plus defender. He was getting there. Are you coming in with a different mentality? He talked about the flexibility and the resistance spans and the things that he's learning from LeBron. LeBron's got the playbook, but LeBron was always a phenomenal defensive player in his heyday. Like, that never went away. And so are you coming out with the mindset, I'm going to be great on both ends? That's what I'm looking for from Zion. And that starts from day one in training camp. That starts from day one on media day? What's your focus for the season, Zion? Those are some of the things I'm looking at. How do you feel about Zion, and what's another question that you have?
Yeah, I think all eyes are going to be on Zion. I mean, it goes without saying that the Pelicans go as far as Zion takes them. We saw it, right? We saw, Zion was playing. They were at the top of the West. He didn't play. They were at the bottom of the West. And so it's a very, it shows. And I think everybody around the league, around the basketball world, is going to be watching Zion because, I think everybody wants to see Zion in the playoffs, but you got to get there in order to do it. And I think playing both sides of the ball, being committed and dedicated to your physique and your conditioning and being great on both sides of the ball, I think that's going to be something for us to walk through. I think another question that I'm going to be looking for is, what has Willie Green learned from his successes, and most recently from his failures, right? We saw him kind of regress to some situations where when guys were not available, he wasn't good with rotations. He wasn't good with like playing guys. He wasn't good with keeping guys engaged as far as on the court play, to the point where like when you needed them, Jackson and Kyra looked like deer in headlights because they just didn't get the playing time that they needed to be counted on at that time. And so, with a team that, again, you're missing some guys, right? Trey and Jose, hopefully for not a long time, but you're adding Jordan Hawkins. Zion is back. And you got guys who can contribute, right? Dyson is there. Are you going to be able to be flexible and not pull guys for games at a time because they get lost on one or two defensive plays when they could be doing things better, right? Obviously, you want all the guys to be locked in defensively, but there's going to be slippage, especially from the younger guys. We're talking about Dyson and Kyra and Jordan Hawkins as well. And so if those guys are contributing, or even if they're just out there playing and learning and gaining experience, that's going to be so valuable towards the end of the season. Are you going to let those guys play? Are you going to listen to James Borrego and his offensive implementations, his rotation advice? Are you going to use that and be implemented? So what has Willie Green learned from his successes and his failures, and how he applies that to this roster that is very talented, that if healthy is one of the best in the West, but it's up to you. I think we saw in FIBA that even with a talented roster like you have out on the floor, if your coaching and your rotations aren't great, and you run into teams that are well coached, that do have great rotations, even if the talent isn't always there, if you're able to get the best out of those guys, you can see it in a coach versus a coach that isn't. So can Willie Green learn some of that and implement it to this season? Is going to be a super important question for me going into media day.
My biggest thing with Willie, and same thing, like that would be the first question. What did you learn from last season? What were your takeaways, and what did you go in the offseason hoping to get better at? You mentioned James Borrego. I want to know, like, from a roster fluidity, you just mentioned it, just being able to take this player and say, let's give him an opportunity. The team is deep, and in terms of consistency, like, Willie was so quick to pull the guys that she didn't know what he was going to get necessarily, to lean on veteran, to lean on know-how and things like that. But then when the veterans start making rookie mistakes and started not playing well, there was no consistency of, okay, well, let me try someone else. It was like, okay, well, we're going to let him play it out because he's been in the league for a long time. And that's something that has to change. In terms of like how James Borrego makes this offense look, let's be honest, like the Pelicans' best players and the most high ceiling players are the younger players on this roster, right? The guys that have the unknowns, the Jordan Hawkins, the Kyras, things like that. And so are you going to let James Borrego use those things in the rotation the way that they need to be used? Or even Dyson, right? Like there's ways to get Dyson involved in the offense, or are you going to lean on what you know? Right. And so my biggest question is how the offense is going to look altogether. Like, is there going to be more movement? Is it going to be less ISO dependent? Like, again, that's something Larry Nance brought up in the spaces, that they're heavily revolved around Brandon Ingram last year, mostly out of necessity, because you didn't have a lot of guys who could score. but I also think there was just so many missed opportunities to get other guys put in good positions to maximize their offensive skill set. And they just wasn't a whole lot. It was a whole lot of just sit on the 3-point line and wait for Brandon Ingram to pass it to you. And I don't know if this roster, in fact, I do know that this roster is not suited for that. So I just want to know what that looks like. And if you can get more sets where your best players are involved with one another, like Brandon Ingram and Zion and CJ and Trey, Zion and anyone on the roster. Like, can you do those things so where it's not just, okay, Zion, top of the key, go to the goal, like Stan Van Gundy. Or BI, same thing. Here you put it in the mid-post, good luck. Like, is it more so how do we maximize each person's skill sets to the best ability? Now, another question I have leading into that, I think it's a really important question, is what is the balance between CJ on ball and CJ off ball? Because, again, CJ had a lot of injuries. He was banged up. He was an Iron Man last season, fighting through the wood. Even though Brandon Ingram missed most of the season, and Zion missed, he was there the majority of the season and played with a bum shoulder, bum thumb, all of it. He still shot great from the 3-point line. Like, he was a top 11 in 3-point shooters. But even if you watch the game, you could say, if this team is going to go where this team's going to go, it needs CJ to be more off ball than on ball. But with Trey missing time, and and Jose missing time, you're gonna need CJ to facilitate some offense. So what are your thoughts on that heading into media day? How's Willie Green? How's Jay Borrego gonna balance that?
Yeah, I think the best thing about CJ's skill set and his game is that it is transferable. Like, he should be able to be good on ball. He should be able to be good off ball. And I think that this opportunity with Jose gone, for a couple of however long he's gone for, if he misses any time at all, this is a great opportunity for CJ to kind of find himself, adjacent to a backup point guard as far as like the system goes, right? So maybe that first sub is CJ right now, and now CJ comes in with a Kyra, with Dyson, with those guys, and is the second, leads that second unit, because he could come in and do some of the things that Jose did as far as dribble penetration and things like that. But like you said, I think if this team is the best version of this team, is Zion and Brandon Ingram working, in tandem, and CJ offering, a full out assault, whether it be 3-point line, catching and driving, floater games, the things that make him great. But being excellent in that 0.3 mentality, right? Just very quick decisions, either catch it and shoot it, or catch it one dribble and score. But I think what we tend to see with CJ, and I think where people kind of get iffy, is where he starts to dance with the ball and do some of the things that, hey, it works most of the time, but when it doesn't work, boy, it doesn't work. And so I think, the best version of this team is him finding that balance, and it's going to be up to CJ, and really it's going to be back to Willie and James Borrego to find opportunities where he can kind of be great at both, right? You let him play some of the game with with Zion and Brandon Ingram, but also let him do some of those things with the bench mob, and let those guys flourish with he and maybe even JV as well.
Last question, we'll get out of here and let you guys go watch the Saints. I think this is the most important question going into the media day and going into training camp, going into the season. Can Jordan Hawkins defend enough? Like, not be a liability, because now with questionable Jose health and questionable Trey health, his skill set is needed probably more than any other bench member's skill set. His ability to draw attention with his movement shooting and ability to hit, knock down open three, and space the floor for Brandon Ingram, for CJ, for Zion is going to be pivotal. But again, what has history shown us? Willie Green is hesitant to play young players who can't defend, right? And so the question going in is, can you get stops? Can you just stay in front of your man and feed them enough until you get help to the point where you're not a liability when you're on the floor? What are your thoughts on this as we wrap up the show?
Yeah, I think Jordan Hawkins has the ability to raise the floor of this Pelicans team if he can stay on the floor, right? If he can stay on the floor. And I think that while Willie does need to have a longer leash for guys, especially Jordan Hawkins, because of his one specific skill set. I do think that it is incumbent upon the players as well to have that pride on defense, to be locked in as a team defensively, and to play as a unit. And I think Jordan Hawkins is a prime example of that. That if you just fall into the defensive chemistry of the team, the defensive game plan of the team, you don't have to be Tony Allen. You don't have to be first team all defense. Just don't get played off the floor. Rely on your collegiate veteran, basketball IQ. He is not like out of shape. He is an athletic guy. He's tall, lanky, so he should be able to do some things, contest shots, and not get lost, after 2 or 3 plays like we saw Trey in his rookie year. So I think that is a very important question, because Jordan Hawkins' skill set can raise the floor of this team if he's out there taking 6-7 3-pointers, and especially with Jose and Trey not playing. Shit, get it up there 9 or 10 and see, because his shooting is gonna be very paramount to the Pelicans' success. So we'll see going forward. But I think Jordan Hawkins' playability and availability is definitely at least top 3 of Pelicans questions going into the media day.
I mean, even in college, he was a good defender. It's just when he would get beat, it'd be based off strength. And even in summer league, you saw him get chased down blocks. You saw him defending at some clip. But again, guys are just going to isolate him and put that weight on him, pause, and move forward. So how are you going to withstand? Like, something we didn't talk about before we wrap up, Herb shot 40% on 2 shots per game, 3 points per game after the All-Star break. I think Herb's gonna surprise some people. That's why I didn't put it as a question. I think Herb gonna surprise some people on the offensive end, and he's gonna deliver in some ways that maybe we haven't seen before. Like, there's a reason why him and BI were at the finals with Willie Green, and not BI and some random person. I think you're gonna see a different level of offense from Herb this year as well. So that's all we got for you this week. A lot of questions. Hopefully, there's no more injuries between now and the training camp. I don't know if Pelicans Nation can survive that. What you got left for the people, guys?
As always, you never know what people are going through, so give someone a smile today. Yes, we have got to stop meeting like this. Just put the whole offseason in rice. Everybody just sit down until media day, and we'll get back to it, because, oh, my goodness. It's just like every day I'm like, what did Sham say? Who heard now? Oh, God. So we'll see moving forward. But as always, follow myself at Garrick_Rattler. Follow my brother at Raphael_Rattler. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, wherever you get your social media, at NO Basketball, no E. And most importantly, subscribe to NewOrleans.network and subscribe to NewOrleans.football. Saints about to go. Who that? We'll see you guys next time.